Sheree Blanchard with the Council for a Better Louisiana here in Baton Rouge. I'm the Vice President and I'm also the Director of our Leadership Louisiana program.
I'm Barry Erwin. I'm President of Council for a Better Louisiana. We're a nonpartisan, nonprofit public policy organization, been around since the 1960s, that focuses on a number of issues at the state level, but a big focus on education, really from early childhood education all the way through higher ed and post-secondary education.
We undertook a case study of our accountability system that we have here in Louisiana. It's been around since the end of the 1990s, going on 20 years. And we realized there wasn't a collective history of why was it started, who were the players, what were the original goals. And so we did a whole bunch of background research and we put together a comprehensive case study just on our accountability system here in Louisiana.
It's interesting for us in Louisiana that we've been involved in accountability for a long time, but somewhat coincidentally, as we began to undertake this project, there became a renewed discussion about accountability in our state, trying to make some changes that a new superintendent wanted to make. But then people were beginning to go backwards and think about, okay, does this fit the context of what we believed accountability should be? Do we want it to be something different? Where are we now with our notions of accountability versus where we were when we started? So that's part of the discussion that's going on now. What was interesting is that before that discussion really came to a head, we had decided to undertake this project for kind of other reasons. The bottom line is that while this other discussion was going on in the state, we had the opportunity to go back to research the history, the origins of our accountability system, which goes back more than 20 years, and to bring the context of how it started, how it evolved, what it was seen as in the beginning, what we kind of now are seeing it as now. All of this is kind of happening in sort of real time while we were working on this project. And so I think that the thing that turned out to be very beneficial was this is probably not a project that we would have just undertaken in a vacuum because the timing didn't seem right, but serendipitously, as it turned out, we did undertake it. It's proved to be extremely valuable. It's proved to be extremely timely. And I think it's going to be a great framework for us to help us go forward in our discussions about the future of accountability and assessments in Louisiana. I think how this is going to help us going forward is that we now have a context and a framework for our accountability system that we didn't have before. We have new players who have come into the game at various stages in the growth and the evolution of our accountability system. They didn't have a lot of the context or the background that some of our older people like myself had. What this is going to help us do going forward is have this framework in this context that we can kind of hand to other people, to people who are coming in at different later stages of the game and saying, hey, look, not every thought that we're having is a new and original thought. This is kind of where we started. This is where we've gone. This is where we might choose to go. But it gives us this framework that really can just be delivered to new folks and to new people who are coming into this space and into this policy discussion and really save us a lot of time in terms of going over a lot of those things. A lot of this information just didn't exist in any place that anybody could find it. It was sort of in some collective memory in a lot of ways, but it really wasn't there where somebody could easily go back and say, hey, this is how it got started. These were some of the discussions we had back then. These are some of the changes that we made. You'd have to do a lot of work to do that. We were able to do that work and put this all together into a single framework that's really going to be helpful going forward in terms of our future discussions about accountability.
What do we at CABL really think the goal of accountability should be? I think that's an open question right now, and it's not the same answer as it was 20 years ago. And what goal do we want to achieve, and how can we use accountability to get to that goal? I think we've learned through this is that the last 20 years, a lot has been asked of the accountability plan. It's not as simple as it was when we first started. It branches out into lots of different areas. And I think it's sometimes you can almost say it's gotten too complex. And it may need to be like simplifying our goal and what do we really want this accountability plan to do?
There is a discussion about what we want accountability to be, what we want it to do, and whether it's the same thing that we thought about it originally. I don't think that has been decided yet. But what I do think has come out of the discussions that we've had and this work that we're doing on this project is that accountability is here to stay in a meaningful way in our state, not just because it's required by the federal government, but because there is a desire among policymakers in our state to have it. I think in terms of assessments, there are some discussions that are still going on about that, but I do believe there's a strong view that we are in the right place by having a strong accountability system and assessments that are aligned to our accountability that really are there for the future. We have politically seen a lot of change in our state because of term limits, with new people coming into the legislature, particularly into the House of Representatives, who come in with agendas, not knowing what's come before them, but need to understand why we have certain things that we do, why we're doing things this way. I believe that the work we've done on this project is going to help them understand those things in a much easier, clear way. And I think really save us some time in terms of trying to have to go explain to another generation, if you will, of legislators and policymakers of why we're doing what we're doing, why these things are important. We'll have it here in a much more condensed and easy to understand way that we can deliver to them and answer their questions, as opposed to start from scratch and really have to teach them the whole history of our accountability system.
It is a great learning community, and it brings different perspectives, and they have access to some great speakers that are doing very interesting and dynamic work. So I think it's beneficial that I took away some knowledge that will benefit just Cable's work and what we're doing. So I really appreciate that and look forward to future opportunities.